little bit about Jenny. Jenny Apple is a resident of Barkhamsted and is a master wildlife conservationist for the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Her house is within the People State Forest, where she observes a large population of black bears. She supplies field notes and photographs to the DEEP and enjoys living there, I'm sure. As a master wildlife conservationist, she also serves as a bald eagle interpreter for the Chippewa Dam Eagle viewing area and the Essex Steam Trains Eagle Flyer. And just to keep her creative juices flowing, Jenny has a side business. She is the creator of Murder Without Pain, where she writes murder mystery games based on historical subjects and runs them at country inns, corporate parties, and fundraisers. And I'd like to introduce you to Jenny. Jenny, it's all yours.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome on this nice day. I just want to say, hey, Roger McKee has like a tartan with a beaver on it. I kind of like that. You know, beaver's becoming one of my favorite animals. So, and again, I think if you guys have heard me before, I probably always have my Curiosity Cola, but I want to show you it is cola. It's not beer, even though it looks like a beer. So occasionally I'll sip on that if I get like a dry throat. It's got ginger and cola. Basically, it's a British drink, but I like it a lot. I recommend it, but it's hard to find. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen and disappear myself. And again, like me, when I'm talking to my friends, if they say something that I want to add to while they're saying it, I'm afraid I'm going to forget it at the end of their long story, write your questions in the chat, but you can also ask them in person at the end. So welcome everybody, and here we go. Owls are a pretty cool thing. Just gotta move this over here. I'm disappearing myself for this. Okay. All right. Who gives a hoot about owls? I do, and I think most people do. These owls may wear the same game face, but when it comes to personality, functionality, and habits, they can be as different as night and day. Oops, hold on, let me get my cursor going. Who the heck is an owl? And this is funny. An owl is a pigeon filled with anger and knowledge. Basically a violent balloon covered in feathers. An owl's natural predators are hurricanes and wizards. Owls live for 300 years if they don't die. So just a little humor, but you will see that owls have a lot of symbolism in our life. There are a few birds in the history of mankind that have inspired gods and man more than the owl. And of course, we also know the eagle. They've long been cultural symbols. They've been found in cave paintings in France. They've been found in Egyptian hieroglyphics, even in Mayan art. So, you know, across the world today, owl superstitions often associate these birds with bad luck, death, and stealing souls in many cultures. Throughout history and across these cultures, people do regard owls with fascination and awe. I know I'm in the woods all the time looking for that little screech owl peeking out of that little hole in the tree, and they're so hard to see. I have a friend from Western Mass that can get so many photos of screech owls. I'm like, how do you do it? I never see them. Anyway, the owls have been feared and venerated. They've been despised and admired. Look at how many are in literature. They're considered wise and foolish. How do we know that? I don't know, but they are associated with witchcraft and medicine, the weather, birth, and death. There's been speculation about owls from the time society was formed, and these superstitions have often been passed down by word of mouth through the generations. In mythology of ancient Greece, a lot of these gods and goddesses would take certain animals as their symbols. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, was so impressed by the great eyes and solemn appearance of the owl that, having banished the crow from her parts, she honored this night bird by making him her favorite among feathered creatures. That one looks like a barred owl, but it's probably not. Who knows what it is? It was protected, and it did inhabit the Acropolis in great numbers. Probably they didn't have a mouse problem there. It was believed that the magical inner light gave owls their night vision. You will learn about their vision in this talk. As a symbol of Athena, the owl was a protector. It accompanied Greek armies to war and provided ornamental inspiration for the daily lives of the Grecians. If an owl flew over Greek soldiers before a battle, they felt it was a sign of victory. This little owl also kept a watchful eye on Athenian trade and commerce from the reverse side of their coins, as you see here. The deaths of Julius Caesar, Augustus, Commodus, Aurelius, and Agrippa were apparently all predicted by an owl. From Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, yesterday the bird of night did sit even at noonday upon the marketplace, hooting and shrieking. There are many superstitions that have spread about that owls are harbingers of death or tragedy. The Romans believed if one heard the hoot of an owl, that imminent death was forthcoming. According to Artemidorus, a 2nd century soothsayer, to dream of an owl meant that a traveler would be shipwrecked or robbed. Another Roman superstition was that witches transformed into owls and sucked the blood of babies. So you can imagine the imagination around owls is quite extensive. The ancient Welsh associated owls with fertility. If a pregnant woman heard an owl hoot, then it was believed she would have an easy labor. The custom of nailing an owl to a barn door to ward off evil and lightning persisted into the 19th century. So lots of things about owls. According to some Native American cultures, every person has an animal designation or a spirit animal, and it's determined by the time of year that you were born. In this tradition, the owl is the animal symbol for people born between November 23rd and December 21st. I have a mother and a brother and a great nephew in those dates. Those who bear the sign of the Native American zodiac animal live life to the full. It is said their spirit of adventure takes them far and wide in their travels. But many Native American cultures do have differing views of the owl. The Pawnee thought of the owl as a symbol of protection, but the Ojibwa saw it as an omen of death or evil. So it's like definitely like the Greek tragedy and comedy face. You know, it has many sides to many cultures. Again, the sign of death, and the Apaches dream of an owl again, dreamed of approaching death. The Cree people thought if they heard owls call, if you answered back to owl with a whistle and didn't get a response, it was a sign your death was imminent. So I can't even emphasize how much and how important to the Native American culture the owls were. On the Northwest coast, though, the owl is often used as a totem pole crest, the top. The Creeks also have a screech owl dance and a horned owl dance among their tribal traditions. So from the Owl and the Pussycat to Disney's Wise Bird to the Owl and Winnie the Pooh, and more recently Hedwig and Harry Potter, owls have long been the subject of literature, from myths to fairy tales to children's books and fantasy novels. Do we all know these symbols? Sometimes Disney depicts animals correctly, sometimes not correctly. As you know, with the eagle, they have the red-tailed hawk's voice when an eagle flies over instead of the chirrup of the mighty eagle. So again, some more pictures of some well-known literary animals. Here's the facts about owls. They're mainly nocturnal. Raptors are birds of prey. They hunt for their food. Their order is the Strigiformes. There's 18 species of owls that belong to Tylonidae, the barn owls. They're found on every continent except Antarctica. They're found in a variety of habitats, from thick forest to open prairies and Arctic tundra. They can be 4.5 to 33 inches perched on a branch. On average, females are 20 to 25% larger, and this is true of a lot of birds of prey. There are more than 150 species of owls in the world, and some counts indicate there might be more than 220 species, depending on how the owls are classified. The greatest owl diversity is found in Asia, but there's only 19 owl species are found in the US and Canada. They're found in all different habitats. There are different owl species, again, found everywhere but Antarctica. The greatest number of owls are in forested habitats where there's cover and abundant prey. But they also can be found in many urban and suburban areas because guess what? There's a lot of rodents at those dumpsters, and they can swoop down and grab a mouse or a rat in an instant. One of the most interesting thing about owls are their eyes. They have upright posture and forward-facing eyes that give them binocular vision, just like ours. Their eyes are not spears, though. They are these tubes, and they provide a much better depth perception than our eyes, and it allows them to see prey from great distance. But their close-up vision is not as clear. They might need reading glasses, as do I, and probably a lot of us. They have a field of vision of about 110 degrees, and 70% of that's binocular vision. They cannot turn their head all the way around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. They can only turn their heads up to 270 degrees, and even upside down. They also have 3 eyelids in order to protect their eyes. The upper one's for blinking, the lower one for sleeping, and the third eyelid, which many animals, including bobcat and bald eagles, is called the nictitating membrane. It's an opaque covering that goes over their eyes and keeps them clean and keeps debris out. They have 14 vertebrae in their necks, and that's why they're able to turn their heads so far, while we only have 7. So we'll never be able to twist our head that much. But with the owls, the eyes have it. As you can see, beautiful eyes. It's more complex in design compared to other birds. An owl has 3 eyelids. Again, I told you one's for blinking, one for sleeping, and one's just that nictitating membrane. Many species of birds do have this membrane, including other raptors, but ducks, dippers, and hingus have it. And guess what? Even the beaver has it. It's a thin layer of tissue that closes diagonally across the eye from the inside to the outside. Without being able to blink, the owl's eyes would easily become dry or injured by constant contact with dust or dirt. Don't blink until you see the color of their eyes. The color of an owl's eyes tells a story about just what kind of lives they live and what kind of hunters they are. The eye color of an owl helps birders identify their species and predicts the time of day they prefer to hunt. For example, owls with orange eyes are crepuscular, meaning they are active during twilight. The Eurasian eagle owl has orange eyes. Owls that have dark brown or black eyes, such as the barred owl and the northern spotted owl, are nocturnal and prefer to hunt at night. Owls with yellow eyes, such as the burrowing owl, the snowy owl, indicate that they are diurnal and they prefer to hunt during the day. And what about those ears? That's the ear the thumb there is pulling back. They're hidden. Because they're generally active at night, they have a highly developed sense of hearing. Their ears are located at the sides of the head behind the eyes, and they're covered by the feathers of their facial discs. Many owls have asymmetrical ears that are different sizes and different heights on their heads, and that gives these owls the ability to have superior hearing. And by having the different height of the ears, they can pinpoint where prey is located, even if they can't see it. Like many night hunters, their sensory abilities are coupled with sedentary habits. When they set up their hunting territories, they become intimately familiar with those territories that they operate in night to night. So as they're swooping down to catch that bunny rabbit, they know that big glacial erratic is in their path, and they just automatically avoid it, even if they don't necessarily see it at the time. So familiarity with their environment really does help them and is essential to their hunting and their ability to pounce on prey. So their hearing helps replace the absence of good eyesight. But again, the intimate habitat, knowledge of the habitat really helps them be such voracious hunters. What about those tufted ears? The ear tufts that are visible on some species are not ears at all, but simply display feathers. They're called plumicorns, Plumicorns.
Ginny, Ginny, we can't hear you.
All right, somehow my internet went out, so I'm sorry.
Oh,
can
that's
s-
good. Good to
some-
hear you. Welcome back.
What's the last thing? What slide did you last hear about? I'm sorry. Oh, the owls and the ears. Thank you. Good, good. Patricia, that was a good invitation that we have in Connecticut. I don't know, there's no bad weather here. I don't know why I lost my service, but I am kind of remote. It's unstable, it says, but anyway. So the saw-whet owl, hold on, I'm gonna turn off something here. Sorry. The saw-whet owl is a winter visitor here. They're so named because their little noise sounds almost like a saw. The eastern screech owl, barred owl are very common here, the great horned owl. The barn owl is an endangered species in Connecticut. You see the facial discs on these owls. That funnels sound to the bird's ear and magnifies it as much as 10 times to help them hear noises that we wouldn't even be able to detect. As you can see, each owl has different facial disc shapes, and that shape is very
Excuse me,
useful.
Jenny, one more time. We can't see your screen.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna, can you see it now?
Nope, just Ginny Apple.
All right,
Okay.
hold on.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna take it back and bring it back. I don't understand what's going on. It looks like I have a full internet when I look at my internet, but okay, let me try to come again. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Huh. Okay, hold on. I guess I gotta reshare it. Let me find you guys again. I've never had this situation, so.
No, it's the wonders of technology.
Okay, hold on. I gotta get back to you, and then I'm gonna share the screen again. We'll see if that works. Everybody gonna have a soda break here. Hold on. Sure if you're here, but it's not letting me. It's not giving me this, your screen again. Hold on, I don't know what's. Oh, there we are. Okay, so I'm gonna share it again. Let's see if that works. Sorry.
There we go.
You got it now?
Yeah.
All right, so I gotta just fast forward. That's a new one on me. I don't even know. All right, here we'll try this again. These are the birds that we have here in Connecticut. The owls, common are the eastern screech owl. The one we probably hear the most is the barred owl. The great horned owl is fairly frequent, and the barn owl is an endangered species here in Connecticut. Again, as I said, the saw-whet owl is only here in the winter, although it might be here other times, but pretty much that's when. I don't know if you heard me talk about the different facial discs, but it helps an owl funnel sound to its ears, and it magnifies it as much as 10 times more than noises we can detect. Different owls have different ones of these discs, and that helps you in identifying them. This barn owl with a harp-shaped disc has a very distinctive shape. They are an incredible animal to see, but not one we'll likely see that much because they are an endangered species here in Connecticut. What about all those feathers? They have specialized feathers with fringes of varying softness that help muffle sound when they fly. If you've ever heard an owl fly over you, you don't hear them. I mean, they just go over. You don't hear that wing rustling like you hear with some other birds. Their broad wings and light bodies make them nearly silent flyers, which helps them stalk prey more easily. They are able to fly in virtual silence because they have a fringe on the leading edge of their primary feathers, which are the wings, that helps muffle the sound. And also their wings are so broad in relation to their body size, it helps them stay aloft with minimal effort so they don't have to just flap all the time. These are those, the fringe on their primary feathers there, and they're called flutings or fimbriate. So they help disperse the wind so that it doesn't make noise. Pretty cool. They're kind of comb-like, and they are on the leading edge of those primary feathers. With a normal bird in flight, air rushes over the surface of the wing, creating turbulence, which does make a little gushing noise. I mean, if you listen even to a hummingbird, you can kind of hear those wings. But with an owl's wings, the comb-like feather edge breaks the turbulence into little groups that scientists call microturbulences. And this does muffle the sound of the air rushing over the wing and allows it to fly silently. But there is an alternative theory that these flutings actually shift the sound energy created by wing beats to a higher frequency spectrum where most creatures cannot hear. So two theories about, the effectiveness of these, but for one thing, theory I know is it does make them fly silently. So here you go. Here's an owl. That little mouse just doesn't have a chance. The owls can swoop in within a matter of a second and grab its prey. What about those feet or talons? Owls have zygodactyl feet. I keep meaning to put that so you can see the great spelling of it. It's probably a good Scrabble word, but with 2 toes pointing forward and 2 toes pointing backward, and all their toes do have talons. This gives them a stronger, more powerful grip so they can be more effective predators. They are carnivores. They eat rodents, smaller, medium-sized mammals, nocturnal insects, fish, birds, frogs, even smaller owls. After digesting their food, they regurgitate hard pellets of compressed bones, fur, teeth, feathers, and other materials they couldn't digest. Ornithologists do study those pellets to learn more about an owl's diet. And guess what? They don't often find domestic cat and dog in those pellets. They do use these talons to capture their prey. The body structures in their legs are shorter and stronger than the equivalent bones in other birds' feet, even a bald eagle. Their feet are able to withstand the force of an impact with prey. And many owl species have feathered feet to protect them from cold weather, as you see here. So here are where the owls sleep. Eagles, crows, and hawks are excellent nest building birds. Owls aren't nearly as excellent. Instead of building their own homes, some owls move into nesting boxes that were built for flying squirrels or other, even kestrels, or empty nests that other birds leave behind. And sometimes they just steal a nest that might be active. Many owls take advantage of the hard work performed by other birds. Like the screech owl, many will nest in holes, which are called cavities or hollows in trees. That's why another reason important to leave your dead trees up if they're not going to fall on your house or your pets. They're called snags, and they're good to leave up for all kinds of critters. While it's assumed that male owls find and advertise a territory, it's actually the female owl that chooses the nesting sites. The nest area is defended by the owl pair and will be their home for several months. Owls do not fall out of trees when they snooze because of their back toes, which are called the hallux, which is like our thumb. It locks onto the branch and it will not open or let go until the bird bends its leg. So that's a pretty cool adaptation. So when you see those Disney owls flipping around the branch, they don't really do that. They can lock in there. Here's a great horned owl and it's getting ready to attack something. So there's their Latin name, one I can actually pronounce. I took 4 years of Latin, but I never was able to pronounce it very well. Same with French. But anyway, they are carnivores, as I said. They live 5 to 15 years in the wild. A lot of our animals end up being hit by car. Some owls, like particularly barred owls in the spring, when it rains and all the frogs and stuff are hopping across the road, they go down and they'll eat a lot of those frogs, and we do get a high incidence of roadkill barred, B-A-R-R-E-D owls in the spring. Again, their wingspan can be up to 4.8 feet, and they can weigh up to 5.5 pounds. So as big as the great horned owl looks, it's not as heavy as you think. They do have hollow bones. Here's a distribution. You see the great horned owl is pretty much all across all across North America and Mexico and up into Canada until you get more to those Arctic type regions. This is a photo a friend of mine took. He grew up in South Windsor. He lives in Maine. He is just an outstanding photographer. This was just taken during this last snowstorm with a snowy owl, and that's its owl pellet. That's a pretty big pellet. So that snowy owl's been eating pretty good. I don't get any cuts from Carl's work, but he is a National Geographic photographer and has amazing prints for sale. And I'm just grateful that a lot of these terrific photographers, when I ask them, they very generously let me use photos that I might not have gotten. So I'm very happy to be able to show you this beautiful snowy owl. Snowy owls do come down here, even into Connecticut during the winter. A lot of times the young males are looking for lemmings. A lot of times the other ones we tend to get northern birds of prey when the weather's severe up north. So in the past few years, we've had a lot of snowy owls in Connecticut, particularly down near the shoreline. Unfortunately, because everybody really wants to see this beautiful ground hunter, they often are harassed by too many people too close, but let's hope it doesn't result in death for them. So here's a picture of an owl taking a crow, I'm sorry. The great horned owl, or the GHO, it's not the golf tournament, but what the birders call the great horned owl, is one of the most common owls in North and South America. Here in Connecticut, it's a year-round resident. Even though we have them in great numbers, you're lucky to see them. They're usually very high up in trees, and it's adaptable to changing environments. It has few predators, but of course, us. And on occasion, bald or golden eagles will eat their young. Though quite abundant, as I said, they are very well camouflaged and one of the most difficult owls to see despite their size. They hunt mostly at night. They will watch from a very high perch and swoop down. They do stow their prey and come back later to eat. They are a major predator of the barred owl, so they are in contention with each other. Aggressive and powerful in their hunting skills. They're sometimes referred to as the tiger owl. It can take prey as big as rabbits. They take hawks, snakes, skunks, even porcupine, which we know that the fisher is most noted mammal for taking porcupine, but the great horned owl can strike it in the tree. But oftentimes there's fatal results for both the owl and the porcupine in that regard. But the great horned owl, what I'm told by owl experts, is that it's just a very ferocious predator, and it just thinks it can take almost anything. Pretty incredible. Here's a great horned owl wing marks and indentation of the prey, most likely a squirrel. So the owl swooped down, and its wing marks and tail marks are imprinted on the snow, and the prey there is in the middle. So it's a very, very efficient hunter. Again, when you're trying to take tracks, this one's pretty obvious what it is, but you can see the white ruler off to the side. If you're going out in the snow, take something to measure tracks with, and then you can look at a tracking guide and try to figure out what you saw. Great horned owls start breeding early, often courting in December and January. They'll produce 2 to 4 eggs by February. So now they're mostly sitting on eggs. They can incubate eggs even when the temperature is minus 27 degrees, which isn't true of most birds of prey. They do use old nests of other creatures, as I said, instead of building their own. Often they'll rob nests of red-tailed hawks, even bald eagles. Their eggs will hatch usually in mid-March. The female provides most of the care for the chicks, while the male will bring them food. Here's a great horned, Here's a great horned owl eaglet, just beautiful, beautiful birds. Here is an eagle that is feeding on a young great horned owl. But turnaround's fair play. A friend of mine, Sal DeFinney, he lives in Connecticut. He lets me use some of his wildlife photos. I'm very appreciative of that, because he has one of those really great lenses, and he waits and waits and waits to get the perfect shot. And as you see, this is pretty perfect. So So here's out in Arkansas, this man had a game cam, on this eagle's nest. So the eagles had spent many weeks making this nest. It's a fairly new nest, not brand new, but a year or two old. You remember, eagles mate for life. And all of a sudden they're sleeping there. And it's not very clear because it's a screenshot. I got permission, but it's from a video. And here comes the great horned owl, and he actually knocks that eagle off on the left. So you can Google Bonnie and Clyde, and it's a YouTube video of this whole process. Bonnie and Clyde are the eagles. So that eagle on the left, Mick, the male, was knocked right out of the nest. So here's the owl taking over the nest and is sitting on an egg, presumably. And then here comes the eagles, not too happy about their nest being commandeered. But apparently the great horned owl was more fierce and was able to keep the nest. So the great horned owl won that round. They don't always. So who else makes up Connecticut owls? The barred owl, very beautiful, probably our most commonly heard in the forest. That familiar Who Cooks for You, I'll play that sound later. And the eastern screech owl, who does live in the crook of these trees. We have the barn owl again, who's an endangered species. We do have on the long-eared owl will be here in parts of the autumn migratory times. Sorry about that misplaced long-eared owl there. The short-eared owl, and again, the northern saw-whet owl in the winter. So the barred owls, as I said, they're the ones we'll most commonly hear and probably see. They can be from 16.9 to 19.7 inches. They can weigh, up to 37. That's not pounds, that's ounces. Their wingspan can be pretty wide, 43 inches, and their lifespan up to 18 years in the wild. This is their distribution. As you see, they're not as well distributed as the great horned owl because they are a forest animal. So they prefer the forest. So you can see they're in more of our forested areas. Those Who Cooks for You sound is classic in forest and tree swamps, and you'll hear them echoing each other in mating season. They can really make a racket with a hoot fest out in the woods at night. It's pretty cool. You can see them, you can hear them around dusk and dawn. And I've heard them in the middle of the night too. Their heads are round and their feathers are brown and white. Pretty classical look there. The brown streaks that pattern their breasts look like vertical bars, as you can see that across the white. And again, they can weigh up to 2 to 2.5 pounds, and their wingspans can be up to 4 feet. I think they have very soulful brown eyes, and their plumage, because of that, they can pass almost unnoticed as they fly noiselessly through the canopy. So sometimes it's hard to see them, but certainly not hard to hear them. Originally, they were pretty much an eastern bird. But during the 20th century, they spread more out towards the Pacific Northwest and southward into California. So as many birds of prey with the banning of DDT and some pesticides, they've had a good growth because of it. Here's a mother with her young. And now the eastern screech owl, I love this one because it's so small, but it's so, vocal when you finally hear it. So it's only it's less than a foot high. It's only about 8.6 ounces at the most. Wingspan, very small, about 2 feet at the most. And their lifespan is 6 years because guess what? Things like the great horned owl and other critters do prey upon them. They're beautiful, but set upon a lot. They have a little trill that you'll hear in the night. It kind of is spooky, but it does come from a little animal that's about the size of a pint glass. They're very common east of the Rockies in the woods. They are in suburbs and parks. So Patricia, they are definitely in your area. They're found wherever there are trees, and they're even willing to nest in backyard nest boxes. And you can Google and get from Audubon plans to build a screech owl nest box, and it's very good to have. You might have a gray squirrel take it over, but if you do get a screech owl, they'll take care of some of those mice for you. They're very well camouflaged. This is the red coloration. They also have a gray coloration that makes them look almost exactly like the tree. So they'll hide out in nooks and tree crannies through the day, but at night, if you train your ears, you might be able to hear them. Again, there's their distribution, so still pretty easterly. They have, see, this is the gray. So, you know, if it's sitting perfectly still, you're probably going to walk on by that tree and not even see it. Their sound is a high-pitched whinny and a trilling call. They can make chuckling calls and bill clacks. You know, owls can make a lot of different sounds. They eat mice, voles, and shrews, so they eat the smaller rodents, but they do eat many insects. They can dive down and prey and capture it with their talons. They can snatch bugs in flight. They do swallow their prey whole, and then again, they'll regurgitate the undigestible parts and hair into the owl pellet. They mate in February and March as well. They court by sitting together on a branch with the male bowing and clacking his beak as he offers food to his intended. I've seen this, it's pretty cool. They tend to mate for life, all owls do, and find each other each mating season, but do not spend the whole year together. They'll lay their eggs in tree cavities again, and the male will help feed the young and the female. So she'll have about 4 to 5 eggs, a little more than the larger birds. Their lifespan again is only about 6 years. They don't lay a nest. They just go into the nesting cavity, and they'll make a little nesting area out of little pine needles, feathers, and make a body-shaped depression in which she'll lay her eggs. The northern saw-whet, it's really a cool looking little bird. As I said, it's here mostly in the winter time. You can see its distribution here. So it just barely, hits Connecticut in our northern part. We're lucky in northwestern Connecticut to get most of our fur-bearing animals in excess, and a lot of our other, we do get the golden eagles migrating here in the winter, but one was seen down on the Connecticut River near Chester this year. So, sometimes in the winter, they'll go further down. The saw-whet is the smallest owl in New England. They do hang out in New Hampshire and Maine other times of the year. That facial disc, let me go back, is very distinctive with brown feathers and white streaks. You're lucky if you see one, but you can hear one. Their eyes are yellow. Again, they're very small, only up to 5.3 ounces, only about 8.3 in height is the most. The wingspan you see is only up to 19 inches. And again, these smaller owls have a smaller life expectancy. They're slightly heavier but more compact than a hairy woodpecker, smaller than an eastern screech owl. And again, they are year-round residents of northern New England, but they do migrate here to Connecticut in the winter. So again, here's some more photos. Their most commonly call is a long series of kind of piping, high-pitched, short hoots. They're very regularly spaced though. They also have little twitters, barks, and whistles. As I said, it was kind of claimed by John James Audubon, thought their calls sounded like a saw being sharpened with a whetstone, a W-H-E-2. So that's another way. The French call it a chouette, C-H-O-U-E-T-T-E, which means small owl. So they think either one, it came from what John James Audubon said, or from the French Canadian term chouette. Again, they're regular visitors here in Connecticut, particularly up where you guys are, and they do favor forested habitat. So they don't breed or nest here. They just are our winter visitors. So the barn owl to me is like just spectacular looking. Ghostly pale and normally strictly nocturnal barn owls are silent predators of the night world. They do nest in barns a lot. They're very lanky birds for an owl. They have that widest face, that beautiful heart disc. They have buffy underparts. It does like hidden places, so a lot of buildings, even though they are endangered species, would be where they are. By night, they hunt with buoyant wing beats in open fields and meadows. They have an eerie, raspy call, not like the hoots of other owls. Despite a worldwide distribution, they are declining in parts of their range because of habitat loss. So you see they're widespread, but they are an endangered species in many, many areas. Their chilling presence helps explain why the barn owl is believed to be an animal of bad omen in the past. It hardly utters a sound, but around Halloween, it's time for mating, and then they start their scream. I think I've told you that a lot of horror movies before mood synthesizers and computer generated noises would amplify voices of different animals, anything from owls to fox. And that's what they use for those horrible screams you hear in a lot of those horror movies. And the barn owl, certainly its scream is one of those sounds. And there's actually groups that follow all the horror movies, and they can't wait for the next movie to come out to see what animal sound they used for a horrible sound. So the males will scream when guarding females during the spring. And if their nests or chicks are threatened, they'll let out a loud, scary hiss. So anyway, they are pretty impressive in that regard. Obviously, the females have a little bit higher pitched sound than the males. They are again endangered in Connecticut because our grasslands and farmlands are declining. They're usually found along the coast and within large river valleys of the state. They are permanent residents. They will range a little further north during the summer. Again, in river valleys, you might be able to see them, along the Housatonic. They certainly are there. And again, they have that blood curdling screech. They are beautiful, I think, with that heart-shaped face, but not too large. But see, it shows you their great beauty. Research has shown that a barn owl sitting 10 feet away from a mouse in an unlit barn can locate that mouse within 3 inches when it strikes. Because prey animals rely on sound to alert them, they are a silent hunter. As I said, those wings with those edges help them fly soundlessly. And again, the same terrain helps them find their prey. It's been found that the average barn owl eats 79 pounds of mice per year, and it doesn't include any other prey it might ingest. Again, it does eat a lot. It does swallow mice whole, and a lot of farmers use barn owl boxes and other tricks to try to attract barn owls for rodent control. So I say, move over, kitty. So here's some. They will breed again in February and March, which is typical of most of our owls. They do mate for life. They will nest in tree cavity barns and sometimes chimneys. They do lay 5 to 11 eggs. The eggs take about a month to hatch. Both parents care for the young for about 2 months. Their lifespan, though, is only about 3 to 4 years because of their habitat is more out in the open. So creatures of the night mostly, but often not the snowy owl. As I said, not all owls are nocturnal. How often owl is seen during the day depends on the seasonal amount of daylight and darkness, food supply, and habitat. In times of stress, when food's low, owls may hunt at any time just to get enough food. So that's when you might see some of those nighttime owls come out. Here's the snowy owl. The breeding you see is very, very north, wintering blue, coming down into Connecticut just barely. They need to redo these maps. I find that a lot of the maps are not as current as we'd like, because I can tell you biologists, whether they work for Connecticut or the federal government, are very spread really thin. And a lot of times they're chasing after problems with animals. So they don't have a lot of time to go sit into their office and you know, get these maps up to date. So obviously we do get more snowy owls now. That indicator should be a little more blue in Connecticut, but we know they're here. I love this picture of this one. So they are carnivores, they are solitary, they do hunt on the ground for the large part. They can live 10 years in the wild. They're not as big as you think, 20 inches tall at the most. They weigh only not even quite just 6.5 pounds would be the most. But they are very voracious hunters. They'll sit in that sea grass for a long time. Stratford Point in Connecticut often has a lot of them. And they'll just sit there and wait until they see some little mole, vole, mouse, or even a small bird and go after them. Many of us call them ghostly visitors from the Arctic tundra, and it's true. The gyrfalcon, we've had them here as incidentals, but not very often. They're really far northern birds. But we do see these in winter. There was a big eruption that starts with an I of young snowy owls in the season of 2013 to 2014. The food sources were really scarce up north, so they flew south by the hundreds seeking sustenance of lemmings, often 1,000 miles or more, so many of them did die. It is wonderful to see them here in our state, but humans often encroach upon owls and other birds. So if you hear one is around, go see it, but watch from a distance, don't stalk it, because that doesn't often end well. They're just spectacular birds, and I hope you all get to see one in your life. Here's one at Stratford Point. So again, they are around in Connecticut in the winter. They do lay their eggs on the ground, so that sets them up for predation by even raccoons. Raccoons love eggs, and other predators, even human dogs, domestic dogs. But here they are, they're quite beautiful. What are the less seen owls in Connecticut? The long-eared and short-eared owls. I've seen one of those each one time only. Here's a distribution of those. Breeding, obviously northerly again. They do come down in winter regularly down here. They're year-round, more westerly and just north of us. So short-eared owl, not too different. Who are owl incidentals? The great gray owl a few years ago, and it probably is more than a few years ago, but it seems a few years ago. There was one up in northern New York, and just people went all over the place. And this thing is like, you know, sitting is about as tall as a bald eagle. It's a really big bird, you know, maybe, you know, not quite a yard high, but pretty big and pretty broad. Who gives a hoot? Not all owls hoot, and owls can make a wide range of other sounds. They can screech, whistle, bark, growl, hiss, rattle. During the nesting season, they can be heard up a mile away. So I'm going to play a few. Get ready for this one if you're sleeping, okay? So that's the barn owl's shriek, and here's a typical barred owl. One more time. And here's the screech owl. It's very wonderful to hear that one. Some people mistake it for the trill for a frog type bird. But if you're out at night and you hear sounds, guess what? If it's up above you, it's most likely a bird. If it's more down on ground level, it's most likely a furry animal. That's not hard and fast, but pretty true. So here's the great horned owl. This is the typical, when people think of an owl sound in general, this is that. Oh, sorry, I went back to the barred owl somehow. Okay, so here's some more noises. The English naturalist Gilbert White wrote in the late 18th century that the barn owl's cries had whole villages imagining the churchyard to be full of goblins and specters. So I'm going to play some barn owl and then some other owls for you here. So here's a barn owl. And here's another barn owl. That's the hissing when it's not very happy and it's warning things out. Now listen closely to this one. This is, oh no, this is a common barred owl. I love the way, listen to how it tapers off at the end. I love that part. And then this is a barred owl scream. Oops, one more time. I like that one. Now, how many horror movies have you heard that one in? A lot. Here's a great horned owl pair answering each other, and listen really closely to hear the other one off in the distance. And this is typical of mating pairs, barred owls, great horn, all of them. So. They'll often echo each other and you think it's an echo, but it's another bird. Now all owls scream. So here's the great horned owl scream. Oops, sorry. And then here is a squawk by a great horned owl. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't a sprout. That's their typical again. They have that hoot hoot and then they have this little thing again. All right, and here's their squawk. And here's the little screech owl. That's it. Oops. Because so that's their scream as opposed to their trill. So the owl's the wisest of all birds because the more it sees, the less it talks. So anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We'll all come back here. And let me just get out of this. Escape that. Get you into full. Come back. Okay.
So far, there are no questions in the chat box.
Okay. So maybe some people want to in person ask.
Yeah, that's possible. That was very good, Ginny. I love the pictures. The pictures, the photos were amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm lucky I have a lot of people that share pictures with me. So
Yeah. Here's somebody has asked, I heard great horned owls screeching, making a racket for only a few seconds. Is that normal?
Yeah, you know, owls are silent. They're silent hunters. So they only really want their presence known if they're mating, you know, trying to communicate with their mate or, you know, look for their mate, or if there's danger around, and then they'll make, you know, a lot of noise. But other than that, you know, they kind of just sit there quietly, even though they have all these incredibly wild sounds. Okay. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of these owls are probably pretty close to our houses too, you know, listen at night. I have owls that are regularly in the trails behind my house, but, you know, I'll go and sit and I'll hear them, you know, and I have my inferior camera ready, but I have gotten the young, I thought I had this video on, but the young barred owl in the spring makes this kind of a whistling hiss noise, and it's very scary sounding out in the woods, but it's the young barred owls. They have this kind of whistle noise. And again, if you're out in the dark in your backyard, sometimes it's just fun to sit out there and listen to hear what you hear. If it's high up, it's generally It's generally a bird of prey. Now, Fisher do climb trees, but guess what? Quote, Fisher cat, they don't make that scream. They're silent predators. They pretty much growl. And if you listen to my talk before, they're weasels, so they're Fisher, not Fisher cats. But, there are a few other animals, like probably your most vocal furry thing in a tree is that little red squirrel, but that's daytime. So,
I have a question here.
yeah.
We live up in the woods in Tyringham, Mass.
I love Tyringham. Yeah, there's a nice little hill to hike up there.
Yeah, we seem to have barred and great horned, I think, listening to the sounds. Basic question, what is the difference between the barking sound and the screeching? Thanks.
Okay, the screeching is just kind of like, so with a great horned owl and the barred owls, when they do that screeching noise, it's an alert. And the bark is also like a warning. So with both of those species, those are alerts and warning. The screech owl, that's just the noise they make, it's just their common noise. But a lot of owls, when you hear them hiss, bark, or have a high pitched screech, not the barn owl, they just are, have that high pitched screech, but like the great horn, the barred owl, those are usually alert type noises they make. And all these owls, if you Google the owls, they, like on Cornell's site, they all have many, many vocalizations, things that you might not realize is an owl out there. And I have done this talk, and we're going to do it again on Halloween, things that go bump in the night. And I give you all the noises of all the critters that we have out making noises in the night. And it's pretty cool. I mean, the loudest time of year obviously is the spring, when you get the peepers and the wood frogs and the bullfrogs and the crickets and all those things making all those noises simultaneously. But even bats make noise. They have a little peep peep they make. So there's very few mute animals, and most of the ones that are mute, like you should hear the bobcat when it's mating, which is mating season now. They have some pretty scary calls, but the rest of the year they might growl if they feel in danger. But most of the time they're also silent hunters, because they're ambush and stalk animals just like your cats. So.
Okay, here's another question.
Mm-hmm.
Do they emit a different noise during mating season to attract one another?
Well, they do mate. Well, they do mate for life. So, they're going to get together kind of like the eagles return, even though they don't have the same nest for whatever ways they have in owl life, they find each other. So they'll only call to each other like the echoing, or, almost like you'll hear coyotes, like when all those coyotes are all making all that noise, it's not, they didn't just kill something, it's their family group getting together. So they will call to each other, and they will make those other noises, the bark and that shrill noise, when they're trying to scare something away. There are all kinds of things that try to go in their nests.
Okay, here's another question. We put up an owl nest box a couple of years ago, but no one has moved in yet. Is there a way to attract someone to the box?
Well, you could put your dead mice that you trap in there, but no, the best way is to, in all of these nesting boxes, and if you have a big place with fields, I would encourage you to buy or get or make a kestrel nest, because they are pretty quickly becoming endangered in Connecticut. Doesn't mean you'll get a kestrel, but with all these boxes, there's the specific direction and the specific place you're supposed to put them. So placement, height, habitat is really more important than anything. They don't necessarily come in. I mean, you'd have to just keep putting fresh bait in there a lot and hope you get an owl. I would say it'd be more the placement of it. You can Google that pretty easily and find out. But again, if, I'd encourage everybody, bat boxes are great to have. They're big, but, and it's great to put a screech owl nest up. You might get some squirrels in there, but nest boxes are really important to a lot of animals, particularly in a state like Connecticut that's so heavily fragmented by roads and buildings. We've taken a lot of the habitat away. The state has been cutting some forest land to make what we call early successional habitat, so that there's more of that brush, those knee-high grassland, for a lot of species like woodcock and different things. And the bobcat love to hunt along those edges. So, it's important that too. And if you have a good amount of property, you can easily Google things to plant, that'll help all these animals. Any tips on seeing them? It's like I go out like I'd say 5 out of 7 days a week, pretty deep bushwhacking in the woods. Right now I'm looking for moose and deer shed, hard to find. But also when you're bushwhacking like that, you can often find, so always you look for underneath on the tree, if you see a lot of white, like that's like their poop, then you might tell that there's a bird there. Also, you just have to look really high up, because the great horned owls particularly are very high up in usually white pines and some of those bigger conifers. The screech owls are, they can be almost face high, head high. They just get in whatever little nook or crook of a tree. So just start looking in holes in trees. Sometimes you might end up having some eyes peering out at you. It's just really, there's no really good way, like when the owl guys go out to call owls in, they always go at 4 a.m. But the owls are out all night. The best thing is to be able to just find a nest. I do know that there are some great horned owl nests in White Memorial off of some of those trails. So you could go in there where they have some of their really tall trees, and there are nests there. So catch as catch can. I haven't seen that many in my life, and I'm out all the time. So, but evening, if you got somebody to walk around with at night, then you could probably locate where the noises are coming from, and then come back in the daytime and find the nest, and then hang out near dusk or dawn, and then you probably will see them.
Wow. Well, that's terrific. That was an absolutely fascinating lecture you gave, and I thank you so much for that. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. This would be the last time to be able to do that, because otherwise I'm going to end the meeting.
Well, thank you, and everybody stay well, and hopefully I'll see you next time. I think I'm going to do, if you have any interest in history, we've never done this one. It's probably not the most popular, but it's called Connecticut's Changing Landscapes, and I follow from when the Native Americans were farming soil and what their habits with wildlife and the land, then when the colonists came and what they did to the land and how that impacted our wildlife species. And it carries up to modern day times and how our wildlife populations have changed and fluctuated with the change in their habitat. So
that day will be March 19th. That's a Saturday at 2 p.m. And it will be on Facebook. It'll be on our website, and it'll also be in I send out a newsletter every month, and it'll be there that you can do a Zoom registration. So I hope you all can join. It should be very fascinating.
One other thing I will say, no matter how far you get out in wildlife, there's a lot of places in Connecticut where we can drive and just sit in our car. Like you guys have many places along the Housatonic where, in winter, you can just drive up next to the river and sit in your car and just hang out, and you're probably going to see eagles and all other kinds of things. So I encourage you, no matter how mobile you are, to just kind of get out there, and nature's random, so you have to be patient. But there's Patricia even might go sit in Central Park sometime. It has to be near, you see more animals near dusk or dawn, but a lot of birds, like eagles, I see all day long here on the west branch of the Farmington River. Our eagles are just about laying their eggs now. So, and that takes about just over 30 days for them to hatch. And so it's a pretty cool time for that. But the male will be flying around, getting food, because he's a little smaller and a better hunter. But he does have to spell the female every once in a while, because she's got to go shake her feathers and get all of that nasty fish stuff out of them. every once. So, I grew up in Texas, and I'll send photos home to friends, and they can't believe how much wildlife we have in the state that they think is all city. So we are very fortunate, and we do have to learn to live with our wildlife. My last little lecture point is there was just an article in, I think last week's Sunday New York Times, about how a huge amount of our eagles and birds of prey are being, owls are being killed by lead bullets. So if you have friends, relatives that are hunters, encourage them to buy copper bullets, because what happens is if a hunter shoots a deer and he dresses it and leaves the carcass there, he's left the bullet there. And even a very tiny, tiny bit of lead can kill an eagle and other birds of prey. So that and rat poison is not good. So anybody you know that you can get their ear, try to tell them to use those snap traps, put the mice out in the forest. They'll be gone in less than an hour. Circle of life, I say. So anyway, that's my lecture for the day. Everybody stay well, and hopefully I'll see you next month.
All right, Ginny, thank you. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank you.
much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.